Hi everybody, welcome back to Mando Lessons. My name's Baron Collins Hill, and a couple weeks ago I put out a lesson talking about 5 things that I've learned from being a musician for a couple decades, and this week I want to talk about a couple things that I've learned from being a music teacher for the last 15 or so years. So here are 5 tips of things that being a musician and a music teacher have taught me. Number 1 is that teaching will make you a better musician. I remember when I first started teaching, it was just a friend in college was like, will you give me mandolin lessons? And I was like, I've never taught before. I don't really know how. So I was like, I'll do it, but I'm not going to charge you. You know, we'll just figure it out along. We'll figure it out together. And if you're down for, you know, bearing with me while I learn how to be a teacher, then let's do it. And they thankfully agreed. And they would just ask me questions like, oh, what are you doing with your hands there? I'd be like, oh, well, I don't know. Let's find out. I guess I'm doing this. And it made me kind of think about my own playing in a lot of ways that I never had before. And, you know, you just get questions. How are you doing this? What's going on there? What's the reason? What's the music theory behind this or that? And the more you get thrown those questions, the more you have to sort of look at your own playing and your own understanding of music and then answer those questions with the student. They often enjoy seeing you go through that process rather than being like, oh, it's this because blah, blah, blah music theory and just having the answer. I think a lot of times students, and I love to see this when I take lessons, is the instructor being like, oh, that's a great question. Let's work through it together. Because then you see the process and it benefits everyone. Number 2 as a teacher is consistency. You know, whether that comes down to practicing or teaching regularly, or even, you know, as kind of creating your business as a teacher, if that's something you're interested in. You know, one of the biggest things that has helped me has been sort of creating this idea that I'm going to put out a lesson on YouTube every single week. And I've done that mostly without fail for the last, oh, I don't know, almost 10 years, maybe 8 or so years. And, you know, having that sort of deadline of I'm going to have a new lesson every single week makes it that sort of consistency really rolls along and it really builds on itself rather than saying, oh, I'll put out a lesson now and then, oh, I'll put out a lesson in a couple months. And having something every day or every week to work on is one of the biggest things that's ever helped me as a teacher and as a musician in general. Number 3 is providing value or information to your audience, whether it's a single person in a one-on-one lesson or to a general population or on YouTube like I'm doing here. I think the thing that I've found most beneficial for my own business, again, and understanding what people want is to really just focus on like what do people want to know and how can I explain it to them. And I think, you know, rather than getting caught up for myself, I don't tend to do a whole lot of like gear reviews or things like that, although that can be very helpful for people who are looking for that kind of information. I think the stuff that I'm most interested in is people want to learn about this music, whether it's bluegrass or fiddle tunes or the mandolin in general, and how can I be a source of information for them? And then through that, you know, I've gained this amazing audience that I have here on YouTube. It has totally changed my life. So I think, you know, really focusing on information over kind of less important aspects and kind of the fluff that often surrounds education is really important because, you know, the more direct and the more helpful you can be, the more people learn and the more they will come back and listen when you have other things to say. Number 4 is something that I'm personally kind of always working on, which is not to assume any given skills or knowledge kind of coming into a new teaching situation with a new student or when I make these lessons on YouTube. I really try not to just throw a bunch of higher level information at anyone without saying, okay, this is an advanced lesson or an intermediate lesson, and if you want this information, here's the video to go watch. You know, with the simple to complex videos, those are a more advanced lesson, and I always say what you need to do first is go and learn the tune, because that's not what's happening now. But really, you know, always going slower than you think. I often, you know, will get excited, especially when talking and, you know, showing someone something that I'm kind of passionate about, I'll get off on tangents and get excited and get ahead of myself. And I think one of the things that I've learned that's been the most helpful is really, keep in mind that this is new information for someone that I may have been thinking about this sort of musical idea for 20 years, and this is this person's first experience with it. So I need to sort of take it slow and build up those building blocks, or else I'm going to leave them in the dust. And that's exactly what I don't want to happen. I want everyone to feel like they understand what's going on at any given time. So really, again, focusing, that's why I'll do a lot of talking about techniques, fundamentals, good tone, simple tunes, and then ways to embellish them is my way of not getting the cart before the horse and leaving anyone behind. And last, this one maybe is more for me than anyone else, but you gotta practice what you teach. So, I often will say, here's how it's done, here's this. I've learned as a teacher that these are the ways that students often will find success in learning a new instrument. And then a lot of times I'll turn around and not follow any of that advice myself and, pick up an instrument and be frustrated with my own lack of progress with it. Say, oh, why isn't this working? And then, I'll get a little frustrated with it. And then a couple weeks later, I'll be doing a lesson and I'll hear words come out of my mouth of like, oh, what you really need to do is take it slow, really focus on good timing and good tone and good technique, and then all that other stuff will build together. And it'll just kind of catch in my head of like, oh yeah, you're telling this person to do exactly what you need to do when you're, for me, it's maybe practicing banjo. I tend to rush on banjo a little bit. I need to take it back and, really focus on technique and good tone quality and all that sort of stuff. But sometimes when I go to pick up a new instrument, all of that stuff that I teach every day kind of falls out of my brain, and I need to remember to, over time I've learned that the way that things really benefit students is, what I end up teaching, but then I can forget that for myself. So number 5 is take your own advice and try out the things that you're teaching. You may find, oh wait, this actually isn't working so well. Maybe something else, and that can reinform your teaching, and then everyone benefits. All right, hope you found some good information in that little talk. One thing I want to stress is that being a teacher doesn't need to be a profession or a big scary thing. We're all teachers in some way, and learning to sort of communicate with people in a way that they understand, super important. It can be as small of a thing as, maybe you're a beginner mandolin player and all you know is a G, C, and D chord. You can just share your joy and excitement of having that new skill with a friend and be like, hey, take my mandolin, try this G, C, and D chord. That's sort of how a friend of mine and I started out playing mandolin. We sort of were like, oh, mandolins are cool, and we didn't know anything, but we sort of taught each other just by every little thing that we figured out on our own time. When we got together, we would say, oh yeah, I figured out this new way to play a D chord, or whatever it may be. So, teaching a tune to a friend maybe will help you learn the tune better and understand it more fully and understand sort of the way the tune is structured. There's so much to be learned just by being a little bit of a teacher yourself, and I hope you find time to do it in your own life. All right, once again, that's all for now. Thanks so much for watching. Lots more hands-on lessons here on YouTube and mandolessons.com. Always free, but there are a couple ways to donate, which is greatly appreciated. All the links are in the description. Not required, but helps me put out new lessons every week and do live streams on the weekends. So check it out if that's of interest, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye-bye.